Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and no, we're really not inside Renaissance Bank, but we're hoping to get back to our perch there one day soon. In the meantime, the folks at Renaissance are going out of their way to deliver personal service to businesses, even if you're a small business. And if you want to test this out, and let me know how this works. If it doesn't work, you need to let me know. But here's what I'm asking people to do is go to renaissancebank.com and find your local office. There are about 200 across the South, ready to serve you, and call them. And if you have to leave a message if they can't get to the phone. But the point is, it's like you'll get a real person, and either a real person or a real person's voicemail who will call you back. And that's not what you get at some big banks. Now, if you like that kind of service and you want to take advantage of it, I'd encourage you to try it out. I've worked with Renaissance for quite some time, and they've been terrific. So, and I don't bring anybody on this show that is not terrific. So check them out. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome Allison Giddens. Allison is the President of Wintec Inc. Allison, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
It's great to have you. Okay, now I'm going to start out. You seem like a really fun person. Yeah, and I'm going to start out, unlike I usually just say, who are you, what do you do? But I'm just looking at your bio, and we're talking undergraduate degrees in psychology and criminal justice. You've got a cybersecurity risk management certificate from Harvard. You're very active in the manufacturing industry. You run a manufacturing company. Oh, and by the way, stand-up comedy.
Yep.
what I must say, I haven't seen that combination in at least 30 or 45 minutes there, Allison.
That long, huh?
So tell us more about you and what you're up to at Wintec.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me again.
Sure.
So Wintec, we've been around for 33 years now. We're an aerospace manufacturer, aerospace machine shop, specialize in a lot of parts for defense industry and contractors. And I got involved kind of by accident. I left corporate America in my early 20s, about 10 minutes after I entered it, and decided I was going to come work for a small business. And I knew the owner, Dennis Winslow, because I had pet sat for him and his family when I was a little kid. And I knew he owned a small business. And when I left a big company, I said, well, I'm going to go work for a little guy because I understand that you could be a big fish in a small pond and make bigger impacts. So that's what I did, and came in for an interview. And next thing I knew, I was running the front office, and baby steps up. And then in October of this past year, my business partner and I took over the company and bought it from Dennis.
Wow. What an awesome story. So I want to get to that and talk about that journey, but let's talk about the state of manufacturing generally, and particularly in your sector, the aerospace industry. So talk about some of the issues that you're dealing with right now.
So in manufacturing right now, the song that I keep hearing sung, and that's true to Wintec as well, has a lot to do with workforce development. So we are desperate for people who know what they're doing, know how to run machines, know everything from cybersecurity to CNC operation. There's just a lot of things taking place now more than ever that require the workforce pipeline to be filled, and it's not. And so we're trying a lot with our local manufacturers, fellow manufacturers, to help approach local school districts and encourage things like SHOP be brought back into high schools, things that encourage kids to get hands-on with equipment and with their hands, and to get excited about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So is that a function of just not the school systems, the educational infrastructure that we have is not encouraging kids to do manufacturing? I mean, what do you see as the cause of this?
I think that's the key question for sure. I see ultimately years ago, probably if I had to guess 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more, the word vocational tech, it was a bad word. It was a lesser thing than some kid that was going to go into college. And now as time has gone on, people are realizing that's as far from the truth as you can get. I mean, how many times have you tried to fix a toilet or tried to wire something yourself and found that all of a sudden you're paying an electrician or a plumber $125 an hour to come do something that you think is pretty simple?
Sure.
So I don't place the blame on our education system. I think our education system has been stretched thin. They're constantly told, given new requirements for everything. There's only so many hours in a day that you can put these different classes and standards on students. But what I do think needs to happen is we need to do a better job as both business and education of finding where there's overlap and finding almost like a systems thinking way. So teaching kids who might get excited about video games, teaching them, okay, look at the similarities in programming on a CNC machine and having these zeros and ones essentially come together and be able to make a part that is going to go on an aircraft carrier, or to make a part and help them kind of see the connections. Like I said, I don't totally blame education by itself. They're like I said, they're stretched thin, but we've got to do a better job, education and businesses coming together for this.
Sure. And so for those that don't know, I'd be one of them. A CNC machine. Talk about what that is.
Sure. CNC machine is a computer numerical control, CNC. So if you think of like the old school manufacturing where you've got a manual mill or a Bridgeport and somebody's standing there and they're pulling down X and Y handle and they're doing all the things on that you think that is very like quintessential World War I stuff. Well, it's not like that anymore. Yes, we have manual machines, and yes, those are very, very useful in a lot of circumstances. But the new cool and stuff that we're trying to attract this next generation to is all the computer related stuff. So a CNC is basically a new and improved version of a mill where there's computers involved and there's, it's very robotics looking. So it's the kind of stuff that you, I'm sure 50 years ago would have looked a lot different in people's mind's eyes, but that's the new and cool stuff now. Yeah. And thanks for going in that direction, because I wanted to get to a phrase that I heard in the middle of all this is cybersecurity. That's not a phrase that a lot of people would associate, or a word they would associate with manufacturing machinery, and right. So yeah, talk about the intersection of those two things. So this is getting to be a fairly hot buzzword among a lot of industries, but particularly in aerospace and defense manufacturers. So the concept here is that, and especially the small businesses, the concept is that the bad guys, so whether it's the nation states or hackers or whatnot, they're not necessarily going to go seek out the Boeings and the Lockheeds and the big guys, because they know they have the resources. They know they have cybersecurity precautions. They're going to go for the little guys because they know that the stuff at Boeing and the stuff at Lockheed and that kind of stuff, all that exists at small businesses because they're the ones making the parts. So if the bad guys can get through to the small businesses, then they've just made their lives a lot easier. So the cybersecurity workforce development and the cybersecurity, really that and those initiatives are vital to small businesses and particularly aerospace defense contractor small businesses. So let's talk kind of specifically about your business and who you serve, and are the parts, the components that you make, are they custom? Are they talk a little bit more about all that? Sure. So we're a job shop. So at any point in time, that means we could have 200 plus part numbers on our shop floor. We are a custom job shop. So if you bring us a blueprint and tell us, hey, I need one of these or 100 of these, then we will make them. We deal a lot in aluminums, titaniums, carbon steel, mostly metals, some plastics. We deal a lot, as I stated, in aerospace and defense contractor world, but we do some work with commercial. We also have worked for medical industry and construction industry. So it's a fascinating thing to see how when there are certain things happening in industry, how it ebbs and flows and impacts us. So, for example, when there's big spending in defense, we might see things ramp up on certain lines. Or if the construction industry, house building, for example, new residential homes, when that ramps up, we start getting certain orders from certain customers for certain parts. So that's always fascinating to see. So it's never a dull moment.
I can imagine. For Allison Giddens, folks, she is the president of Wintec Inc. The word "she" in a sentence involving a manufacturing company is unfortunately not that common, right?
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about women in manufacturing and encouraging young women to get into this industry.
Yes, for sure. There's a wonderful organization out there called Women in Manufacturing, and they're a national organization. And we have chapters all over the place. And one of them being Georgia. And we work a lot to try to encourage women to get involved in the industry, but also to stay in the industry. So that's the other problem, is it's hard enough to find women to enter the industry or to encourage them to get here. But then once they get here, they might not necessarily stay for whatever reason, family obligations, maybe no upward mobility, things like that. I think the latest statistic was that even though women make up 51% of the workforce, they only make up between 27 and 30% of the manufacturing workforce. So I see a lot of different groups like Boy Scouts of America, Girl Scouts of America. They're all doing really good work, try to encourage STEM in schools and get kids excited about science and math and such. So I think we're on the right path. Those kind of baby steps, I think, will mean more as we just keep staying the course.
Yeah, and this really compounds your workforce problem, right? I mean, you're really only your effective pool of people, I guess, I'm overstating it, obviously, but is only half the population, and so right, so yeah. It really compounds your workforce issues.
Yes, absolutely. There's one really, I think, profound thing that Dennis Winslow, founder of Wintec, my former boss, he was a real proponent for actively seeking out women for the shop floor and also actively seeking out vets. Because his line of thinking was, you have a workforce shortage in the industry of manufacturing. And then you have this one particular community, women, and then you have this other particular community, veterans. And both of those communities are constantly challenged with getting back into the workforce or getting into the workforce. And so why not reach out to those two groups of people? Because if anything, then they're kind of the secret pipeline of sorts.
Sure. Folks, we're here chatting with Allison Giddens. She's the president of Wintec. So, Allison, I mean, you have been involved in, all sorts of different initiatives outside of your company, whether it's Chattahoochee Tech, whether it's the Chamber, the Women in Manufacturing chapter here in Georgia that you mentioned. That's obviously a compelling and important part of what you see your role in leading Wintec, right?
Yes, for sure. I really do think it all ties together. So I find myself having a hard time saying no to volunteer opportunities, as many business owners, and I'm sure others do. But I think it all ties together because if nothing else, if you find yourself involved in a nonprofit or in a business industry group. And if nothing else, you can't directly tie it back to your industry and say to yourself on the way to an event or opening up a Zoom, okay, how does this tie into ROI? How is this going to make me money? Ultimately, if you're able to become the example for your industry or for your business, then that means something. And I think that there's value there. So as much as I'm involved in a bunch of Chamber of Commerce activities, there were plenty of times where I thought, okay, well, this isn't exactly going to turn around and make me a profit. No, but the 10 people that I volunteer with may go home and tell their young adults, hey, I know someone in manufacturing. And then that person might enter high school thinking, hey, I could do that. There's an aerospace manufacturer down the street Dad told me about. So the pieces of the puzzle come together. If you're passionate enough, then it happens. For sure.
Now, I have to get to this. And I mean, this is, I was about to say it's non-business, but maybe there is some business to this. Maybe there is some value to this, but stand-up comedy at the Atlanta Punchline. Yeah. How did you get into this? And how does that, is that a creative outlet for you after work, or what? What role does that play in your life?
It was kind of it was a funny story in how it happened. So years ago, it was New Year's Eve, and I said to my husband, I want to do something different in the new year, something that kind of branches me out. And he said, well, why don't you throw it out to the universe and see what sticks? And so I took that very literally, and I posted on Facebook to all my friends, all right, everyone, if you could pick one thing for me to get involved in the new year, what would it be? And I had like 150 responses, and they were all stand-up comedy. And so I thought, all right, well, let me figure out what this is all about. So I found Jeff Justice's School of Comedy in Atlanta. And the basic premise is that he helps you come up with the linguistics of comedy and understand kind of word placement and jokes. And I will tell you, if you take any of those types of classes, never again can you watch stand-up the same way. You find yourself critiquing every word that comes out of their mouths. But it's a little less funny in a way. No. But the graduation, so to speak, is basically you performing your bit in front of 250 people, which is the most terrifying and the best rush that you'll ever have. So I highly recommend doing it if it's of interest to anyone out there. There's something too that if you could bring humor into anything, you make people remember you, and you make those relationships a little bit more, I think, genuine, a little more authentic.
For sure. So what happened for you? I mean, at your graduation, how did that go for you?
It was a blast. The very first time, I've actually done it twice. It's 2 different classes, so I did it twice. And the first time it was nerve-wracking as anything. And there's not a lot of stuff that makes me nervous. But to get me up on stage in that capacity, I thought, this is not going to be funny. Nobody's going to laugh, or they're going to laugh, but it's not going to be with me. It's going to be at me. And it's, all these different things go through your head, but it was a blast. I got on stage, and to be walking on stage beforehand and seeing that people like Robin Williams and Chris Rock had drawn and written their names in the green room. This was the old school Atlanta Punchline. This was before it moved. Mm-hmm. But to see all those names right before you walk on stage is a little daunting, but so exciting. And I couldn't get enough of it. And if the Atlanta comedy scene weren't so very difficult to get into, I don't know, I might have made it a part-time gig.
What's the role of humor and comedy in business? How do you bring that back to business? So there's a tough line that women have in manufacturing, where it's tough for us to be taken seriously in an industry that is male dominated. And so we ride the fine line of, if you're not serious, you might not be taken seriously. But I think I've gone the other way. And I've said, you know what, whatever. If something's not worth laughing about, it's not worth dealing with. So I've kind of gone the other way. And I try to see humor in everything, because nothing really is serious enough that you can't laugh at it. Again, I think that if you can laugh with somebody, it helps to bring an authenticity to the relationship, even if it's business. You put people at ease.
you let them save a little bit, save face if they're already entering into a business relationship with you, and they're on the lines with whether or not this is going to work. If you can put them at ease, then the chances of that relationship working out is probably a little bit better than otherwise.
That makes perfect sense to me. Allison, so let's get to and maybe talk to employees out there that are looking to succeed their current bosses, like you and your partner, John, went through. Talk a little bit about that process and kind of how that unfolded and kind of the lessons learned out of it.
So it was a really well thought out process, and I recognize that not everybody has the luxury of time that we had. A few years ago, when Dennis knew that he was going to be retiring, he put it out for John and I to say, yeah, we do want to buy it from you. And then we talked back and forth about what that would look like. And there were a lot of uncharted territories for all three of us, really, because this was the first time we were buying a business, and this was the first time Dennis was selling a business. And I remember him saying to John and I, this will be the biggest deal of my life, but not the biggest deal of yours. And that really put things into perspective for me, because I knew we would be dealing and negotiating, and I knew lawyers would be involved, and I knew that we did not want to burn any bridge. We wanted to remain friends through this. We wanted to be able to go get dinner together and not have to worry about, we've burned that bridge and we've destroyed this person's company and all of that. So there were a lot of one-liners that I think I've carried with myself that Dennis has said one way or another throughout the years, but I don't know that I realized how important they were until after the fact. He's a very methodical, well thought out person, in very opposite of knee jerk. Something happens, he's not going to make that decision today. He's going to sleep on it. And I grew up, I'm kind of type A, always have to be involved in things, have to pull the trigger now, ask questions later. But that has helped me, I think, been plenty of times in the past few months, things that have come up, and I've taken a step back and said, all right, what would Dennis do? Because even though there were plenty of things that John and I have changed, the company wasn't a 30-year company because Dennis didn't know what he was doing.
Mm. Yeah, and there's a trade-off there, or a fine line, maybe I should say. I mean, you've really got to be both respectful of the reasons why things were done a certain way. There are good reasons for some of those, and then also looking forward to changes you have to make to be competitive and to grow.
Yep, exactly. And I think that was part of some of the challenges, some of the growing pains a couple of years ago. So as again, cybersecurity and as all those types of things started happening, and I would come to Dennis and say, here are the new things that we need to be looking out for, and here's this. You could tell that he wasn't interested in that. He wanted to make parts. That was his love, is manufacturing. And his take was, why do we have to do this when all I want to do is make parts? So there were some growing pains that John and I worked through with Dennis to still remain true to the mission and to the cause. You don't want to turn into a cybersecurity company that happens to make parts in between making sure that we secure data. If we want to be a manufacturing machine shop that happens to have cybersecurity front of mind, that, we care about customer data enough to act as though it's ours. So I'm very fortunate. John, my business partner, he's been in the industry for 30 plus years, and I've known him for 20 of those years. And he knows the stuff I don't know, and I know the stuff he doesn't know. So, and we trust each other explicitly on exactly what it is that the other person doesn't know. So there's a great trade-off there. I don't know that a day goes by that I don't realize I'm very, very fortunate on how all the pieces kind of came together.
Yeah. And having someone that what you're describing is a yin and yang relationship in a way, right? I mean, and it sounds like it was ready made right there. And that's pretty unusual to have that in the way it was presented to both of you.
Yes, for sure. For sure. There were plenty of times that, I'd go into his office or he'd go into mine and say, well, I don't know how to do this. And the other person would go, oh, well, I know how to do that. That's how, this is how you do it. It's like, oh, okay, good. All right. Then everything's going to be okay.
I love it. Allison Giddens, folks, she's with Wintec along with her partner, John Hudson. They are co-presidents of the company and both veteran-owned and women-owned. So awesome stuff. Allison, this has been great, and congratulations to you and John on your success and much success. Wishes for success in the future. But before we let you go, let's get to the most important question is for those that would like to be in touch, like to connect with you. What are your coordinates?
So please find me on LinkedIn. I'm Allison Giddens on LinkedIn. My profile's public, so you won't have a problem finding me. But definitely connect. Very active on that platform. So would love to be in touch with anyone.
And particularly if you want to get into manufacturing as a career, right? So
you got it. You got it. I have offered several manufacturing companies. There's something I developed called the Advanced Manufacturing Virtual Internship to encourage workforce development. So if anyone out there is interested and wants to learn more, connect with me on LinkedIn and I will send you the template, the curriculum, and make sure that you can take it and run with it.
Awesome. Allison Giddens, folks, with Wintec. Allison, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Folks, just a quick reminder that if you've got some problems in your business that involve you as an owner spending too much time on administrative tasks or bookkeeping or things that you really shouldn't be working on, I've got an answer for you that involves picking up the phone and calling the chief executive angel over at Office Angels, Essie Escobedo. Essie's been around for 21 years, and she's been virtual that whole time, so a pandemic does not scare her or her angels. And what she does is diagnose your problem, and she picks out an angel to fly in, get the job done, and fly out. And they do it on an ongoing or as-needed basis. You can go to officeangels.us and look at the list of services that they have there, but my suggestion is just simply to pick up the phone and call Essie. 770-442-9246 and tell her I sent you and explain your problem, and she'll be glad to help you. And I speak from personal experience. They do a fantastic job. I couldn't run my business without them. So I highly endorse Essie and her firm. And folks, a quick reminder that we would love it if you would go to North Fulton Business, use the search term North Fulton Business Radio on your favorite podcast app. And please find the show, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. I'm not asking that because I need that affirmation. I'm asking that because I want people to find the show so they can find great guests like Allison and the other 600 plus guests we've had on this show over the last almost 5 years. It helps these great guests and to get found. So if you would do that for us, we would appreciate it. And of course, we would love it if you would connect with us on social media. North Fulton BRX is the search term, or for LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, probably a few other social media platforms that I don't even know. But check us out. We would love it if you could do that. So for my guest, Allison Giddens, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.